Hello. Anybody miss me? Oh well, I miss you guys. I miss you guys so much. It's been more than a minute, right? I have been under the weather and I'm grateful to be back on my feet. And yes, I'm back. I'm here and I'm trying to get my mojo back. Well, this very episode is long overdue. It's like a sequel to episode 3. Yeah, because I promised I was going to bring a medical person here to talk to us about postpartum depression. And luckily, I have an amazing doctor here with me, Dr. Tolu Ademujimi. And we had a nice chat and I'm super excited to be sharing with you guys. So in case you have any questions or whatsoever, you can always drop a comment. Okay, so we'll reach out to him and he'll reply to all of your questions. Thank you. Enjoy. Hello, Dr. Tolu.
Yes, hello. Good morning, Toyin, and how are you today?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. How are you too?
Very good, thank you.
Okay, it's so good to have you on the show. Before we start, can you please introduce yourself?
Oh, okay, so thank you for having me. My name is Ade Tolu Ademujimi. I'm a medical doctor by profession. I've got some experience from the private clinical practice through public sphere of healthcare, with emphasis on primary healthcare and also health insurance.
Okay, that's awesome. So good to have you on here. Thank you so much for making our time for this.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, let's just dig right in. Today we're talking about postpartum depression, and we'll be focusing on new moms and surprisingly new dads. I just found out that you suffer this type of depression, and I can't wait to hear you talk about this. So, what really is postpartum depression?
Well, so thank you very much. So first of all, it's good to understand what depression itself is before we add the postpartum adjective to it. So clinically speaking now, depression is a form of mental health disorder, and it's characterized usually by continuous loss of interest in activities. And usually when such persons lose interest so much in these activities, it's severe enough to actually impair their daily life. And that's why it's clinically significant, not just to say depression like another English term, but to actually characterize it properly as a form of mental health disorder. So having understood that depression is a mental health disorder, then to now say postpartum depression means that partum means delivery, and then postpartum simply means after delivery, that's after childbirth. So yes, postpartum depression is that clinical form of depression that occurs in mothers, usually after childbirth. And there are different causes, but just to put it in perspective, that there's an interplay of hormones. Of course, you understand that when a woman starts puberty, there's a hormone called estrogen and certain others, but estrogen in particular, that shape how the woman menstruates, have breast buds, etc., etc. Now, during pregnancy, there's an exchange of that hormone. So there's a hormone we call HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin. That's the hormone that people test for when you say you are pregnant and go and do a test, whether it's urine or not. So HCG is the hormone of pregnancy. And now when a woman has put to bed, there's an attempt by the body to withdraw that HCG and restore the initial hormone of estrogen and what have you. So that hormonal exchange and interplay after childbirth is partly responsible for this postpartum depression. And of course, in addition to that hormonal interplay, you have issues such as stress that the mother is now introduced to, anxiety because of need to care for a newborn, and even sometimes social pressure. So maybe her mother-in-law is around her, etc. So in summary, postpartum depression is that clinical form of depression that a mother who has just put to bed has to go through with, because there's a mix of interplay between her hormones that are trying to reset, social issues that she's trying to cope with, and other physical issues such as stress due to trying to take care of the newborn baby. So that's the basically.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. What are the signs of postpartum depression?
Okay, so again, before I say
how do you know?
Yes, so before I say the signs, so it might be also important to stress that, like you had mentioned earlier, these days a lot of men are also coming out with postpartum depression. Now it's interesting because they're not the ones who actually carry the pregnancy in the first instance.
Yeah, that's surprising. It's really surprising.
And so you're wondering, why does he also have to share in it? So, well, maybe you say it's love. I mean, you need to share what your spouse is feeling. That's on a lighter note. Of course, I think it's also because they are also part of, particularly the physical and the social effects. They also bear that brunt as well, which the mother also bears. Now, so the signs, like you asked, of postpartum depression. So first of all, a woman has put to bed, usually about 48 hours after, then she may feel some of these signs, and then sometimes it could last as much as 1 or 2 weeks. And the signs include things as simple as she becomes moody. So again, moodiness is also explained by the 3 things I've mentioned. Of course, remember that even sometimes when an average woman is menstruating, or even sometimes when
So as you were saying,
okay,
you were talking about how
okay, you want us to just take the signs,
the father gets affected.
Like I said, fathers are surprisingly getting affected as well, because like I said on a very light note, that perhaps it's also a demonstration of love, because you should actually feel what your spouse feels. But more importantly, it's because they, as men, are also exposed to these same factors, that to some of the factors rather, I beg your pardon, that can also trigger, this depression, which includes, the social issues. I mean, they're also exposed to it, around the house after birth of the child. They're also exposed to issues of stress around the house. And then, of course, there's some neglect, perhaps because there's some spousal withdrawal. They feel their wives have, sort of deprived them of things like, one, attention.
Wow.
So he no longer gets to have his wife ask him, your tie looks good, or it doesn't look good on you, why are you putting on this shirt? That's one. I mean, another form of neglect is because she probably doesn't even have time to pay attention to, have you had breakfast, or what are you eating this morning? You want me to make omelette for you? Blah, blah, blah. So he feels he's neglected in those instances. I mean, another one is he also feels there's, complete neglect of companionship. So he can't gist with his wife anymore, because she's either snoring or trying to breastfeed the baby, or trying to sort out diapers, or she's trying to get sleep because she didn't sleep at night. So, he has those forms of deprivation. Is
it safe to say men are babies as well?
So truly they are, because they also expect all of this affection, and attention from their wives, and truly that's why wives are not just wives, they are actually also babies. So he just feels that he's deprived of attention, he's deprived of food, he's deprived of companionship, and he's also deprived of sex, because he can't just say, baby, let's make love, because she says, I'm tired, I'm trying to breastfeed, blah blah blah. And then of course the man also is struggling to get sleep. Maybe the baby is crying, his wife is up at night, and as an expression of solidarity, he wants to join her, or truly the baby is actually screaming down the room, and so he can't sleep, and he needs to go to work the next day. So he's also under that kind of stress. So when you don't get sleep, we call that insomnia. That's a medical term. And of course there's also the economic pressure. So now he's not just trying to say, okay, I'm trying to put food on the table for myself and my wife, or buy clothes and perfume for my wife. Now you have a baby. So you need to also provide, for all the from food to diaper to every other item that the baby needs. So there's an extra demand for his finances, and so all of this put together can actually make the man depressed. Surprisingly.
Wow. Okay. Okay, I totally understand the economic aspect of it, but the other part, I mean, you don't expect me to be asking you how's your tie when a baby cried, when I couldn't get enough sleep at night, when a baby cried all through the night. Find this together, please.
So that's the point. You probably have spoiled and pampered him with all of those things, and so he's struggling to accept that there's a new baby that is taking this away from me. Okay, so that's the issue. Yes.
Okay. So I figured something out here, especially in this part of the world, like in our society. People tend to shy away from recognizing and admitting to being depressed. What do you think this is about? And how do you think we can fix that?
So, very good question. The reason is that, first of all, majorly, so there are a lot of factors that are responsible for people shying away from accepting that depressed. There's a stigma that comes with mental disorders. And that stigma is particularly very profound and pronounced in our own environment as Black people. There are a lot of taboos and a lot of myths that are associated with stigma, that actually stems from our cultural mindset in terms of how we see mental disorders. So someone feels I'm depressed, or probably doesn't even know it's called depression, because again, I was trying to say the signs of depression earlier, so maybe I just run through the signs again. So first of all, a few days after birth, the woman can just start feeling moodiness, and I was trying to explain that hormones responsible for that. Of course, the social issues as well, physical pressure and stress can also be responsible for that. Number two, she just gets cranky. She gets very cranky and irritable. And it's understandable. You are struggling to get your baby to be quiet, to get some sleep, and then baby wakes up suddenly and requires attention. So you get cranky. Number three, you can just go sad. So sometimes it's not explainable. You just find out that, okay, I have a new bundle of joy, and rather being upbeat about that, I just have this moment when I'm just sad. And it can just be because, like I said, your hormones are, have an effect on your mental state, or you just feel overwhelmed by the fact that I have a lot of work to do. I'm thinking of changing diapers like 6-7 times in a day. I'm struggling to get food for myself. My husband is also asking for some attention. So you just go sad. The fourth sign also can be you just don't get sleep. And how it feels for a human being not to sleep for days, not talk of weeks. So, insomnia, you just don't sleep. And then you just find out what's happening. Yes, truly, the baby is here. I can't get sleep. And I'm telling you, sometimes it becomes chronic. It may be a sign that you're actually getting depressed. Of course, another sign is usually what we call anorexia. So anorexia is loss of appetite, especially for food. You may just lose appetite. And you just find out that you're just struggling to get food. And so here you are, you fed your baby is asleep, and you have that moment of, like uhuru, like, yes, I can have my peace now. But the least that will just come to your mind at that time may just be food. And you may even see the food and you just don't feel like eating it. Now, if that happens continuously, that might be a sign that you actually begin to tilt towards postpartum depression. Another sign could be anger. You just get angry. Of course, like I said before, you can become persistent, because there's persistence in all of these signs for us to say, yes, this is likely a postpartum depression. So persistent anger, and easy irritability, so to speak, can be a sign. Another sign can be anxiety. You just get unduly anxious. The fear of tomorrow. So what happens? How do I start to, when does my baby start to crawl? When does my baby start to do this? When am I going to get off using diapers? When am I going to get off not having sleep? So you're just anxious, or, anxiety goes on for long. Might be a sign of postpartum depression. Sometimes there's also something we call despondency. So being desperate, you just feel hopeless. You just feel like, man, am I ever going to get out of this? And then you just feel there's no hope for tomorrow. Am I going to be doing this babysitting thing for long? When am I going to resume back to my career? You're struggling. So you just feel there's no hope for tomorrow. Usually. So if you have that consistent feeling, usually first 2 weeks after childbirth, that might be that you're already being tilted towards depression. And then finally, but not the least, sometimes too, you just lose interest in everything. So your spouse comes back and he's trying to get you to smile, and he tells you I have a glass of juice for you, because usually maybe you guys take juice after dinner. You just tell him I'm not interested. He tells you, okay, that's fine. Let's just take a walk. Baby is sleeping now. Let's just take a walk around the house for 10 minutes so you get yourself together. You say, I'm not interested. Okay, you're still struggling to get your tummy to go back in because you feel, okay, now I've lost my shape. That's also part of it, really. I should have mentioned that earlier. It's part of the social pressure I was talking about. So some people don't have spousal support. So maybe your husband is already saying, come, look, I mean, you should put yourself together. Tell your tummy is still popping out. So she just feels, why would you talk about my tummy? So all of these things can actually make her go depressed and she can lose interest in virtually everything. So these are the signs of depression. So like I said, back to what the society feels about it around here. That's a major reason why a lot of people don't want to come out. Secondly, so a doctor tells you are depressed after birth. They are scared that will likely tilt them to taking drugs. And so, that feeling of, that fear of medications, people just feel, so it's better I keep it to myself and so that I don't have to take drugs. Another reason why people also want to come out is they feel that their in-laws in particular will just become unduly unfriendly because she feels my mother-in-law can say to me, when I put to bed, when I actually give birth to your husband, I mean,
why do they do that?
What is it
why
with
do
you?
They do that?
And you just get unduly.
That's like the order of the day in an average home. But why do they do that?
Exactly. It's the African setting, really. And, again, there are a lot of cultural bias. People just feel that because they experienced some of these things way back, that it's only natural for, women of these days also to feel those things. That if you don't feel them, they have that feeling that you are not baptized into womanhood proper. So for them, it's just normal for you to feel a bit depressed, but you need to get yourself back together. So why should you take your own to the extent that we're taking you to the hospital to go and give you drugs to say that you're depressed and all that? So you fear that their mother-in-laws would also overreact knowing that they have been pronounced depressed. And then sometimes also, another reason is, some people will tell you, if I don't manage that moment very well, if I own up to being depressed, I could also suffer some form of spousal deprivation. So in terms of, they feel that if they are not careful and they are pronounced depressed, their husbands could actually just go out and look for a fling. And so that way they are indirectly pushing out their husbands by accepting that they are depressed. Okay? So of course, this depends on the husband as well. Some are very supportive and truly is probably going to stay with you. But some are just not supportive. And so they feel if I own up or a doctor pronounces me as depressed, then that's like a leeway for him to just go look for whoever will make him happy outside of the home. So those are some of the reasons why people shy away from accepting that they are actually depressed postpartum.
This is scary. It's really scary, I must say.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It's really, really scary. As a matter of fact, women are just super. Yeah. I just have to say that. I give it to us.
Very. And honestly, I give it to you. Very tender agents, because like I said, even a woman who is not pregnant can just be moody because her hormones at that time can explain why women, suffer a lot of mental issues and depression.
Wow. Okay, so another question. How do you think the society and family members can help out someone suffering from depression?
Very good question. Because again, as doctors, the emphasis is not just on recognizing signs and getting people to come forward. It's also about providing solutions. And so you see one thing about, because again, this is like a public health issue. And then and that's why leadership in public health space is important, because you're actually trying to solve what so there's a man called Kate Green. Kate Green is a professor of public leadership somewhere in the UK, and particularly in the healthcare space, and he calls them wicked problems. There are wicked problems in public health because in trying to solve them, you cannot just sort of deploy a single approach which is clinical. So because in trying to solve these wicked problems of healthcare, particularly public healthcare, which this postpartum depression in men and women actually also falls, you are going to need to do a lot of solutions that cut across clinical and non-clinical interventions. So, so for the society to help, that's the non-clinical part. The spouse needs to always put up that emotional support. So first of all, the man needs to come out of his own blues, and accept that, yes, is my wife who has actually been through 9 months of pregnancy and has to cope with nurturing our baby. And so I need to support her. So even when I ask her questions and she gets unduly irritable, just understands that she's going through a period that can be beyond her control. I need to, still try to pamper her. I need to pay a lot of attention even to her physical needs. Sometimes it's even funny. So maybe she's trying to put on her nightgown, and the way she normally would do it in a very smart way, this time around, maybe she just puts it on briskly, and so for that reason, a part of it is up and another down. Now, you don't give responses like, can't you see that you don't look good? No, you should just help her pull it down gently. That's the kind of emotional support that needs to come from your spouse. That's one. Two, family members. Now, if you have your in-laws around you, it's good for our mothers to understand that things are changing. The fact that you went through certain things doesn't mean that your daughter's in-law rather, need to go through them. And that's why so we need to also, as man, educate your mother if she's coming to help with the baby at that time, to say, mommy, to us that women can go into depression when they are trying to nurture a baby just shortly after birth. I know you've been through this before, but we also have different coping mechanisms. You might have coped well with it, but please, I need you to just join me to give emotional support to my wife during this time, so that she also comes out of it strong. And it's also for my own betterment. I mean, if she comes out of it early, your son will also be smiling again. But if she doesn't come out of it early, your son will also wear, a very boring and nasty mood. And so if you tell that to your mother, then you can help your wife to actually get that needed support even from her mother-in-law. That's number two. Number three, the society needs to work on our psyche as regards mental issues. Okay, so in Africa, Nigeria, especially, that I know, that stigma around, you're going to see a psychiatrist because you're depressed, and they tag you in psychiatric hospital. So we need to stop all of these, sort of what they call labeling. Don't label people who have to see mental health specialists as having, weary. It's not schizophrenia. It's not stuff like that. So we need to change our orientation as a society, in terms of how we view all these mental issues. That's number three. Number four, so when a woman puts to bed, if she was employed previously, she goes to her postnatal, she engages her postnatal leave. And so there have been people advocating that we should extend this period from 3 months to 6 months. I agree as well, because again, you said they should breastfeed their babies for 6 months. So why, if you are supposed to breastfeed exclusively for 6 months, why not allow the mother to be at home for 6 months then, so that you can exclusively breastfeed? So our laws and our policies around postnatal leave should also include that we should encourage mothers to, during that period, have mental checkups, so to speak. So she's not just going to the hospital for only a postnatal check on her baby. She should also have herself checked as well. And we should make it mandatory to say part of your check should be that you must see a mental health specialist within 6 months to assess, especially the first 1 month of birth, to assess your mental state. So if you come up with these policies as well, so I've named before, from the spouse to the in-law to how we view mental health in society, and of course policies to include mental health checks in postnatal leaves for the mother. So these for me are the multiple factors that can be deployed to actually help combat this period.
I hope it gets enforced as soon as possible, because this is a very crucial issue. And I realized that the mood of the mother can actually affect the child in different ways, Okay, so there is one more question I'd like you to talk about. Is it true that people with anger issues are prone to depression?
No. No. So you see, again, these are some of the myths of our society, and I've said it, timeless, as a countless times. You see, again, it's got nothing to do with people who get angry all the time. As a matter of fact, like I said, maybe anger is probably even one of the signs of depression. Okay, so rather than say people who get angry are prone to becoming depressed, I'll tell you that everybody on the road is actually at risk of depression. And that's why the suicidal rate now is quite alarming in this part of the world, where we feel that normally nobody will just find it convenient to just take his or her life. Because as against the Western world, we have a very strong family support in Africa. And so why are we now having an increase in suicidal rate in spite of our family support? So I think one of the reasons which studies have also brought out is the fact that people are going through all sorts of social and economic pressures. And so, I mean, unemployment, large family size that you've got to take care of, pressure from your extended family, people need money, your mother is asking you for money, your uncle is asking you for money, all sorts of pressure. Even in the urban centers, the average person in Lagos has to cope with traffic, for long hours. So all of these can actually lead to mental breakdown and tilt people into depression. So I would say it's not true to say people who are angry all the time or often are prone to being depressed. No, I say just anybody on the road is actually at risk of depression because of the variety of social and economic factors that can tilt people into depression.
You sharing all of this with us, and I hope with this at least people will get to be more educated and more aware about this thing called depression. Thank you so very much. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. If anybody has any further question, I would refer them to you.
It's been a pleasure being here.
Okay.
It's a pleasure being here.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, I want to appreciate your platform as well. Thank you for having this platform to reach out to people, and I pray it goes bigger and have a larger audience.
Well, that's what you heard from Dr. Tolu. He already told us all we need to know. So.
Okay, so that's it with Dr. Tolu. Well, I know a lot of people will be like, oh, we've heard this before, or okay, it's just funny to know that I've had this very conversation with two people. I'm talking about two learned people, two well-traveled, exposed people. I've had this conversation with them, and they opine that, well, in Nigeria there's nothing like postpartum depression. We're just following the crowd. We're just trying to be like the white people. How come our grandmothers and our mothers never had this kind of experience and all of that? I don't know, I really don't know what to say. Everybody's free to have their own opinion on certain topics, but well, on this very one, it's quite sensitive, and I just hope we all take it more seriously.